Hello, and my name is Nicole Ward. I work as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I consider myself sex positive. I consider myself cisgendered, Black, female, middle class. For the purpose of this vlog today, I would like to talk about the adultification of specifically Black girls in the United States. And to begin, I will offer a definition of adultification. So adultification bias. Adultification is a form of racial prejudice where children of minority groups, such as African American girls, are treated as being more mature than they actually are by a reasonable social standard of development. And for this vlog, I will utilize personal experiences and also professional experiences and the benefits of professionals being aware of how adultification impacts our Black girls, our Black children in our culture, in the culture of the Black community, and also in our culture of the United States. So the consequence of Black children, Black girls being seen as older has a wide range of consequences. Our children aren't allowed to be children. Our children are expected to act more maturely and be treated more maturely. Our children are expected to have a knowledge base that our children may not have because they are in fact children. And so research has shown that in the school system that more often Black girls are punished more, have consequences, punitive consequences, because they're not seen as innocent, because they are expected to know more or to behave in a certain way. And so it's difficult to have this conversation in the context of the here and now without looking at our cultural context, our context of the United States history. And so when slavery was in place, slaves were expected to behave a certain way. They were expected to do things, to behave under a certain rule. Children, toddlers were expected to have certain jobs and certain tasks that they were expected to do. Young girls were expected to start having children and breeding and creating wealth for the planters in a way that should not have ever been expected for a child, for any humans to be expected to work, to be expected to procreate, to be raped as children. And so we have to take into consideration this cultural context of adultification of Black girls, the slavery piece, the foundation that these children were never considered children. They were considered nothing more than property, and how this continues to impact children today. And so we recognize that in many ways we live in this rape culture of the United States. And so this rape culture and how this impacts Black females, particularly as being viewed as being more mature and not being viewed as children, being viewed as hypersexual and being viewed as sexual objects to be taken advantage of. And they're children. These are our culture's children. And so I'd like to take a moment and offer a personal story from two different components. One, me as a child, and also my current 12-year-old child that I have. So when I was a child, I remember oftentimes hearing, you look older than 12, especially when I was 12. When I was 12, I was already 5'6", because of historically how Black women are shaped. It is perceived that we are hypersexual, that in our curves, that we are older than what we are. And looking at a 12-year-old Black girl having a 12-year-old Black child right now, I'm definitely aware that She looks like a kid to me. She is a child. She's my child. She's not a young woman. She is a child. Her thought process is that of a child. Her brain development is that of a child. Her actions are that of a child. Her wanting to pull out her dolls and play are characteristics of a child. Despite being in puberty, I definitely recognize that she's a child. And thinking back, I was a child. I was a child when men would look at me in a certain way, and I was perplexed by that, and being told by older people, well, you know what you're doing. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What are they doing? I have no idea what they're doing. Call them out, that kind of thing. And the impact of this on children, that we are not able to fully be children, to play, to learn, to grow, and to develop, and to be seen in our innocence for who we are as a culture, and who we are in our development, that we're expected to be something that we aren't. I think it's important that we call this out for what it is, this adultification of Black girls, that this is sexist and that this is racist. It is sexist, it is racist. There's no way to dress it up. There's no way to say that it's anything different than what that is, and that we know where that came from. We know the root of that is slavery. We know the root of that is ownership of people. We know that this is oppressive. We know that this is not allowing Black girls to self-actualize in this gentle way that children should be allowed to be, that it is a human right for Black girls to be children and not to be penalized for the color of their skin, which is beautiful and amazing and able to absorb the sun, and not be penalized for their shapes of their bodies, for them to be able to grow and to develop into who they need to be. So as a child, hearing negative things about my growth and development, not that it was normal to just be with these ellipses in back of it. About my daughter, recently we were at an eye appointment, and my daughter had on her mask, and she was getting an exam for her new prescription, because she had changed in her prescription. And I was explaining to my daughter how her prescription had changed. And the person that was waiting on us, not the doctor, but the person that was waiting on us to fit her for her new frames, said to me, as I was explaining things to her, why are you talking to her like that? She's a grown woman. And I turned to her very, very professionally, also with anger, and I believe righteous anger, to say to her that clearly she wasn't aware of who my child was in that moment. She hadn't looked at her chart. She did not look at her chart in detail to see that my child was in fact 12 years old. And so I said to her, she's a kid. And she responded, well, she looks like she's 20 years old. And I responded back to her, she is a child. And I expect that you treat her as a child, because going forward, if you're treating her as anything other than a child, we will have a problem, because she needs to be encased in this gentleness that any other child would be encased in when getting fitted for her new pair of glasses. It should be an exciting new experience for her, for a new pair of glasses that I call face candy, this accessory that she's going to wear on her face for probably the next year. And you've already conceived her as something other than what she is. So thus my explaining to my daughter about this new pair of glasses, this new lens, was out of order. Like my daughter should already have this information and know this information. So this prejudice, this preconceived notion that my daughter had this information and that my daughter was mature by the way that she looked, even though she had this chart in front of her, she's getting fitted and picking out glasses in this child section. the consequences of adultification don't allow our children to be children, and that the people that care for them, the people that choose not to be bystanders, have to consistently be in a place to defend them, to defend their childhood, to defend their honor as children, to be cared for, to be protected. And I'll say that again, to be cared for and to be protected, because that's what we do with children. And we do that in a different way than we do with adults. We care for children because they're dependent on us. We care for our Black girls because they are dependent on us to keep them safe in this culture. We are supposed to keep our Black children safe in this culture because they need to be protected, because they are especially vulnerable to sexism and to racism. And Black girls deserve to be girls, to be seen as girls, because they are not women. They are not hypersexual. They are children with developing brains. They are immature because they're children. And the consequence of them not being treated as children is detrimental. So I hope to continue this vlog in a part 2, and I hope that you'll tune in. Again, my name's Nicole Ward. I work as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I consider myself sex positive. I'm a Black woman. I'm cisgendered. And before I was a Black woman, I was a Black child. I was a Black girl child.